This episode was recorded just hours before Steve Borthwick named his side to face Ireland in England's opening game of the Six Nations. Join myself in a very special panel of Chris, Nick and Richard from the Rugby Analyst to preview the tournament as a whole. And as has become tradition, we are joined by England, British and Irish Lion and Bath legend Jerry Guscott. Here we go. Six Nations week. We're almost through January. The winter is about to get just that little bit easier. Today we preview the tournament as a whole, as well as looking ahead to this particular weekend. And of course, we pick our tournament winner. We've got player of the tournament coming up, one to watch coming up, as well as reigniting our world famous predictions league. As has become Rugby Paper podcast tradition for the fourth time, to preview the Six Nations, we're joined by England, British and Irish Lions and Bath legend, the Rugby Paper's very own Jerry Guscott. How are you, Jerry?
Ollie, I'm in good form. I've had a bit of warm winter training. I've just come back from the Middle East where my brother lives. So it was nice to get away out of these blustery, cold, wet conditions, sample 24 degrees. And totally relaxed.
Amazing. And you've come right back into the eye of a storm as well. So I hope you haven't come back to a broken fence or a tree or anything like that in the garden, because that's never nice.
Front garden looks all right at the moment. So all good.
Avoiders. Good. And are you fighting fit? Are you playing golf? The back's okay?
Back's not too bad. I got to be honest, I've been part of a nice group of guys that play every Saturday. And to begin with, when you first join, you got to play every weekend. And that was more than over a year and a half ago. And now I'm more a warm weather, dry golfer. So the conditions have meant that I come out with this excuse like, well, I can't play in the wet because I might slip and damage my back again. And then it's been frosty. But these guys play, unless the course is shut, these guys will play every single weekend. Good on them, but not for me and these old bones.
I guess is it the TGL? Is that the name of the new indoor league they have? I don't know if you've seen that, where they play on simulators. Maybe that's one to look into.
Well, we're quite fortunate here at Camberwell, in between Bradford and Avon and Bath, Camberwell Park. They've just opened an 8-bay simulator. It's the largest sim centre attached to a golf club in Europe. It's a fantastic piece of kit and facility. It's got pool, darts, shuffleboard, and 8 bays. It's great fun.
Incredible. And I should say we've also got a second special guest joining our panel today. Hopefully he'll drop in a couple of times over the course of the tournament. Rich, it's not the first time we've interacted, but it's the first time you've been on the podcast, so great to finally have you on.
Pleasure to be on. The emergency call came out yesterday, didn't it? So I don't know if I was first choice.
Always.
But
always.
I'm there ready for you.
Always. Well, look, last year obviously re-kick-started the World Cup cycle. Six Nations in a Rugby World Cup year maybe is arguably the most important in the 4-year cycle. But Jerry, in a Lions year, it's well up there as well, especially for those home nations.
Yeah, it adds to everything that the Six Nations is about. You've got the usual rivalries, but simmering away in the background, you've got selection to go with the greatest team on one of the greatest tours. So you can't help but think about that, especially the ones that have been on it. They want to go again because it's such a magnificent experience. If you haven't won, you want to go and prove yourself, be part of a team that wins. If you're up and coming or you've not been on the tour, you've heard so many amazing, incredible stories about the tour that you want to do your best and do everything you can to get on it. So yeah, it's that adds a little bit of spice to it, particularly in all those competitive positions in the team. I mean, the back row competition is just going to be off the scale to try and get in that Lions squad.
And our feeling on the podcast, and we've tried to pick our Lions 15 at least once and alluded to it twice, is the dress rehearsal is the Six Nations, and any opinion is only validated after the Six Nations, because these 5 games can sort of change everything.
I think what's great about the Six Nations, and if being a fan, if you could write your starting 15 or 23 squad for that first test against Australia and do it on form, not reputation, and watch it change through the 5 weekends of the Six Nations. I assure you, it will change dramatically. As long as you take your heart out of it and pick it just on form, I think we could see some big swings, particularly every side that plays France, because France would appear to be the dominant side in the Six Nations, and every team, every home union is going to find it tough against them. So where they might do well against one another, they might be struggling against France, and that might take them out of the equation of being in the starting 15.
Yeah.
Will it change enough to have 8 Welshmen in your starting lineup for the first test in Australia?
Wow, I tell you what, Chewy, if that happens, I might actually go and watch.
I think we can hold you to that, but I don't think you need to worry that we're holding you to that, to be honest.
No, that's why I said it.
Let's start with the English then. And Rich, you've spoken a little bit, about how England are shaping up. I mean, the stakes are incredibly high because I don't want to jump to conclusions with too dark a cloud over my head, but we could potentially be heading to, hosting Wales with 1 win out of 4 by the end of it, and then Steve Borthwick's job is potentially on the line.
Yeah, and got some questions for Jerry. Really, I'm a bit worried, Jerry. I'm a bit worried that Borthwick is going to go too conservative. The leaks seem to be that maybe there's going to be Chesham's going to start at 6, and he might play it safe in certain areas. Do you think playing it safe with, say, a high ball game, keeping it tight, is going to be enough against Ireland? Which way would you go?
If I be totally logical, what I feel is logical, I don't think Borthwick's done a half bad job. I'm 50-50 on him at the moment, although the results are the other way. They're not saying he's that good result-wise. But maybe I'm being a bit on the heart here with England, that the games that they've lost have been relatively close, and they're games that they should have won. So I'm going to be more the positive, that I believe it's going to get better. I don't think it's going to get any worse. And it is a tough start against Ireland, who are probably the most organised, structured team, not just in the Six Nations, probably in the world. And they'll be smarting after the defeat at Twickenham last season. But I think Borthwick has set a style and a standard, and I think those will improve. I will go back to the South African game, and the 2 tries they scored in the first half, I believe it was, were very well constructed, very well executed. And for me, that would be the base of where England start. I just would like to, I don't have any problems about Chesham playing 6. I think before his injury, he was blasting, but ball carrying, tackling, he was all court player. I like a big rangy 6. If you add to that Tom Willis, I think you've got a monumental back row. For me, Ben Earl has played well. He's been man of the tournament. He was almost player of the year internationally. He's dropped off. He's dropped off massively. And when I actually saw him live here at the recreation ground, I couldn't believe how small he was. For someone that size, playing in the back row, international rugby, playing as well as he has, that's outstanding. But when a smaller person drops off a little bit, they are just demolished by the bigger guys. So I would.
Would you have your man Ted Hill? Would you have him in?
Oh, Ted Hill has been brilliant down here at the recreation ground. He's granite. I mean, he is one direction. He's committed. He's great at carrying the ball. He's good in defence. Yeah, I guess Sander Cunningham South, is it?
Yeah.
I like him as a 6. I would have no qualms if he started or Ted started, and maybe Ted came on. But I like that combination of the big 6 and the big 8. And for me, Tom Willis has to play 8 for England. If he doesn't play, that's Borthwick being his most conservative, relying on someone who's got more experience. But you've got to throw these inexperienced guys in who are playing well. They're respected and highly regarded in the Premiership by all players because of the way they're playing. So blimmin' pick 'em.
Before we go too
that's my
far
worry,
down the
that
back row,
he will hold back and.
I think that I think this is all of our worries. There have been selection leaks, haven't there? Always.
Yeah, there's one leak today which says that he's going to pick both Currys and Ben Earl at 8.
I've seen one.
Well, look, that's in the Telegraph, which suggests that he's going to go swamp the breakdown, which they've done against Ireland before, and made life really, really difficult for the Irish around the ruck. Which is a tried and tested tactic, but I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But that's in one of the papers today, and they've got guys who have their ear to the ground.
My difficulty in hearing stuff like that is that this is a team being picked to kind of nullify the opposition rather than just be yourselves. Find yourselves. Find what you want to do, the best way of playing. Let the other team worry about what you're going to do rather than you think about what they're going to do. Because defence, I've said it in the column, it's not rocket science to defend. Honestly, it's the first thing you're ever taught when you play rugby is how to tackle, because it's safety first when you're young. And those have changed since I was a mini rugby player. However, it is easy to defend. It's hard to attack. Work much more on your attack than you do on your defense.
I tell you what, Chris, if you're right, that would be a great concern, because that means that their line-out options are massively reduced. For me, that also picking of Chesham, we saw is a real issue, because we saw during the autumn when he shoehorned Slade and Ford back into the side, when they had no real match play behind them at all. Chesham's been out for a long time now. He hasn't played a club game as far as I'm aware. And for him to come in at 6, straight off an injury, just strikes me as nuts, when you've got guys like Cunningham South, who did very well in the autumn. And I know that he's had his problems being in and out of the Quinn side, but the last game he played, he looked as if he hadn't been away at all, and very difficult to see why they dropped him in some ways. But I mean, he's got options all over the place. I agree with Jerry entirely about Tom Willis. He brings a completely different dimension to the back row, and I think Earl's done really well slotting in there, but I just think that the whole idea of playing a very small number 8 it has real limitations. And also he hasn't played badly this season, but he hasn't been showing the form that he did during the World Cup. And that's understandable. People drop in and out, but I just think that he needs to rethink his back row, and he needs to get some real power in there. Willis is a start. I certainly don't think he can afford to pick Chesham at the moment.
Chesham played in that Toulouse game. Not that that's saying all that much, but
82-10, yeah, he did. But did he come off the bench, or did he play the whole match?
I can't remember. I think he played a half. I think he played the first half. Okay. But no, you're right. He is shy of rugby.
Well, whatever he didn't turn the match for Leicester, did he?
No. I think, is there a question to the floor? Is there a back row that accommodates Tom Willis, Ben Earl, and a tall, rangy 6? Would we consider that a balanced back row? It maybe doesn't attack the breakdown in the way that Chewy was just alluding to with the 2 Currys and Earl. But is that potentially one that we could see fielded?
Well, I think Ben Earl on the bench could be a great call with, say, Ted Hill, Ted Hill and a Curry and Tom Willis at 8. I could see that working.
Listen. I mean, I know that Tom Curry's got is embedded and has got a well-earned reputation. But if you look on form, at his form this season, it's been mixed, and he's not really firing at the same level that he did when he made his name. And just purely on club form, his brother, who's taken over the captaincy of Sale, has played outstandingly well. And if you went on form, it's his brother who should be in the 7 shirt.
I think it's hard to argue that Curry is the player he was in 2017.
No, difficult.
I think it's impossible to argue that. He's also 1 concussion away from retirement calls, or should be anyway, if player well.
Sam Underhill's been in that boat for years.
True, but Sam Underhill operate still seems to
We
operate.
We don't know, Ollie. We don't know what that, or at least certainly I don't. Maybe you've got information that the rest of us haven't, but we don't know speculation-wise where they are with concussions. But if you go on form, which is what Borthwick ought to be doing most of the time, there are real holes in his game at the moment as a selector.
I think if you wanted to go deeper into that, and which I don't really want to, but again, we mentioned it in the column, Borthwick is accountable, responsible. His job relies on the performance more on the result. And he's been the person who has made the substitutions, chosen who to come on, when to come on. And they've lost those games in those crucial times when he's made the substitutions. So at the moment, if you were being very critical, you would say he is really under the microscope on how he's making the substitutions at the vital moments, because pretty much every game, I believe, England have been in the lead. And he's made those 6 or 7 or 8 changes and England have lost. So he's got to get that right, let alone get the back row correct.
I'm with Rich actually on the Ben Earl thing. I mean, Earl is a perfect bench player as far as I can see. I mean, deep into a game, no opposition is going to like his pace very much, and we know he's a multitasker. He has decent experience in 7 and 8 at test level. So I don't really see an argument that Ben Earl starts, frankly.
I'm just worried that England are playing a team to win a game rather than trying to build a great team. I don't mind if they lose, if I can see the direction they're trying to build something special. I don't know. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes and what team they pick.
But I think you've got to win a game to be able to build anything. So, I think that's my view on that aspect of it. He needs to select a team to win.
I don't know. I think I'd prefer to see a team that could become great than a team that could stay okay. Personally,
do you think you could pick that team at the moment?
It's getting there. It's getting there as some of the young props are coming through, some of the under-20s are coming through. So I'd be happy to personally be a bit weaker results-wise if then in a year's time we start to see some special rugby that we can all get excited about, because that's what I think England fans want to do. They want to get behind the team. They want to see players and go, wow, I can't wait to see them play. I want to see a Jomo and Lawrence together, a bit of excitement.
Might be getting a bit carried away in that England have been winning their games within 30, 20 minutes to go. And the fans are excited. They're frustrated that England haven't been able to get the win and across the line. And I promise you, Rich, if your job was on the line to be the coach of England, you would not be looking at the performance. You'd be looking at the result, and you'd be picking your best team for now to win tomorrow, not to win in 3 years' time, because you don't get that luxury in that position.
Yeah. I mean,
it's difficult to go to ground zero, isn't it? When you're already when you're already established, your coaching career at England level has been going a significant amount of time now. I mean, he's not the longest serving, hardly. I mean, what's he been there, 18 months or so? I can't quite remember exactly when Steve took over, but it's difficult to go to ground zero at any other time than at the start of your regime.
Chris, It's 2 years now. He's been in the job 2 years now, and I think the one thing that I'd agree with Rich about is that there needs to be something a little bit more coherent than what we've got at the moment. There's a lot of chopping and changing, and one of the things that I was thinking is that if you were going to fire a bullet at the start of this Six Nations in terms of injecting something different into it, and particularly disrupting a guy like Van der Fleer, who's so important to what Ireland do, I would have, he introduced Tom Curry, or Eddie Jones introduced Tom Curry when he was 19 gave him his first cap against Argentina. I would really have loved to have seen Pollock given a chance at the beginning of this Six Nations to show what he can do, because he's been on fire in Europe for Northampton. So, and I know
there's a long-term plan. The under-20s were going to get Pollock back. I was chatting to the RFU last week, and they kind of let slip that Pollock was going to be with the 20s. I didn't release it on a video because I didn't think they'd want that, but he wasn't going to be playing.
Yeah, which is a shame. I mean, I presume, Rich, that wasn't them saying he was going to be with the 20s for the whole tournament.
No. It's just he was available for one-on-one interviews in the build-up to the France week, which,
I mean, look, I'll tell you what concerns me. This time last year, obviously, Jamie George was promising fans to be, up on their feet. We saw that for the first time in round 3 against Scotland. That then pinnacled it against Ireland not the week afterwards, the round afterwards. I think there was a 2-week gap. That appears to have been a red herring. But what concerns me is the dialogue around, taking to the skies and dominating the air, the leaked back 3 potentially of Freddie Stewart, Tom Roebuck, and Tommy Freeman, which Jerry is someone who loves a speedster on the wing. We've spoken about Faye Waboso together. I'm sure you're a big fan of Ollie Slightholme as well. Is probably not music to your ears.
I think there's a lot of bluster spoken to the media because what can you say? You're not going to tell exactly what you're going to do, but you know what's going to happen in a game of rugby when you watch England and you watch Ireland. Most of these Six Nations teams, apart from France, you're in your own half. You're going to kick more than you run. You're going to play it a bit safer, and you're going to look to attack a bit further in. You might have a strike move from just inside your own half, but you know what's coming. It's about executing and delivering. Ireland are the team that come up with some special plays in certain positions. France can attack from anywhere because they've got the quality from 1 to 23 to do it. I'm going to remain positive about England, despite who they might pick, because I do strongly believe they are on the right track from what I've been seeing. It's a shame that someone like Furbank has been injured because he's an out-and-out attacker. Stewart, in fairness to him, has been improving in that position in terms of attacking. I read an article about him at the weekend, but he has really, really worked hard on it, and I've not watched enough of him to see if it has. When you talk about Slightholme, the guy's got a hunger for the line. Tommy Freeman has got another hunger for the line. I'd love to see Freeman at outside centre, but again, Borthwick will never take that risk unless it's enforced by about 6 or 7 injuries, and he'd have to play in there. It's such a shame because that would be, I think, a small development just to see if he's got the class at this level to do it, and I strongly believe he has.
6 or 7 injuries or 67 injuries?
Yeah, it could be that many.
The latter's more likely, to be honest. But Jerry, you wrote in your column 3 wins and therefore 3rd place is a success, which I think, well, I suppose some people have been saying they need to win one of the next 2 games in order for the tournament to be a success. You don't see that necessarily.
I third. On probably on world rankings, they're 4th. They finished 4th. I don't see them beating France and Ireland because I just think those teams are too good. But I thought Ireland were too good last year and they beat them at Twickenham. Scotland have just got the edge over them. Finn Russell's playing just fantastic rugby. He's full of energy. He's got so much belief at the moment. He's doing very little wrong. Wales are not the team they've been for a long time, and Italy just struggle against England. They never beat them, so I see them winning against Italy and Wales, not winning the other 3.
Okay, makes sense. And that represents not a successful campaign, and a win against Scotland would then.
It's not. I don't. Success is subjective for me.
Yeah.
World rankings, so you say they finished 4th. If anything better than 4th could be regarded as success.
I think that's probably our general feeling on the podcast. I don't think. I mean, speak up, guys, if you're expecting them to go to or to host Scotland. Sorry, with a win under their belt. I certainly don't.
No, I wouldn't fall off my chair in shock if they beat the Scots. It's Twickenham. They can put a result out there. As Jerry's been saying, they're not a poor side. They've been in the position to win big games against very high quality opposition recently. So I don't, and I think Scotland are really hurting with the loss of Tuipulotu.
Yeah,
who does so much to make the game they're playing possible. And Jerry knows, crikey, better than anyone. Decent inside centres are rarer than rocking horse. You know what? I mean, there are 100 ways to cast an inside centre, as we discussed many times before. I'm a bit disappointed actually that England haven't picked Ojo's son, especially as Max is slightly lighter on his feet than Steve these days. I think I just think there's something a little different about Max Ojoma. I think he does things a bit differently. I think he picks some different lines and he's got some interesting timing about him. And I would have liked to have had a look at him, but the 12th position for England remains a complete Horlicks.
Well, can we ask Jerry about Scotland? Jerry, what would you do with Tuipulotu out? Who would you put with Hugh Jones?
I ain't got a clue. I don't watch enough to see who's coming through. I guess watching Scotland over the last couple of seasons, he is integral, but I don't see that is their biggest challenge. I think Scotland's biggest challenge has been the ball carriers, a bit like England dominating the collisions. If you don't get front foot ball, it doesn't give you the quick ball to release any back line. But the thing for Scotland, I have never seen Finn Russell in such confident mood. I don't mean personally, I mean on the rugby field. He is, people talk about Dupont and what he's doing on the rugby field. I would put Finn Russell up there with him, that everything he's touching is working out. Every pass, every kick, most of them, 9 out of 10. Yes, it is a loss without doubt, but I think Finn playing as well as he is going to pull Scotland through.
I think Jerry's on to something there. Actually, I think I think Xander Fagerson is playing out of his skin at the moment. I think he's the best tight head in the British Isles. I think he should be the Lions in tight head. And there's a proper ball carrier for you. And Jack Dempsey on a good day is one of those also. But they are a little bit light in that department, and they can just find themselves being bullied out of stuff a bit.
Yeah, I did an analysis of one of these Scotland Six Nations games in 2024, and Scotland went through huge periods of possession and phases, but the forwards never once actually got over the original gain line.
Really?
And they were zooming the ball around amazing, and that was one of their problems last year.
Rich, with your analysis, then, who slots in for Tuipulotu?
Well, I think for me, Hutchinson's the obvious choice attacking wise, because he's amazing creative. He does those little pop balls. He's got the pace, but he's not as big and powerful as Tuipulotu. Or you could put McDowell in there and recreate the power and the size, but then not have the same pace. So you can get half of him, I think. So Hutchinson, I suppose.
We talked about it last week a bit. I suggested that they might put Tom Jordan there. Because,
he's a double playmaker. Yeah,
he's a big unit. He's pretty quick, and he's obviously a fly half, I think, by choice, but he's played fullback too, and he seems to me to be somebody who might offer them something there. I'm not sure that they're, it's a huge loss, no question, but they've got more depth than they've had for quite a long time.
If you look at the way Tuipulotu plays, you've still got, I'm looking at their squad, you've still got units like Van der Merwe, Blair Kinghorn. They're not small guys, so you can probably utilize them a little bit more, no matter who you put it inside.
Put Duhan it inside. Why not?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
But who were inside?
Van der Merwe. It wasn't a serious
Oh.
suggestion. I should make that legally clear.
I think Jordan's a dark horse for the tournament. You ask for dark horses, we'll put him in there. He's got something special.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a good flag, and we will obviously get to that once to watch. Rich, I'll be putting you on the spot before you head in 5 minutes or so as well. So you're going to have to nail your colours to the mast. But I think one thing I've noticed is ever since Tuipulotu's injury, and maybe this is only in my head, but the needle has shifted between could this be the year Scotland finally get things done to will Scotland finish third or fourth? Perhaps that's unfair, but I suppose the overriding question is, do we actually see Scotland as title contenders this year?
I did, but I still think, even at completely full strength with no injuries, I still think France is a big step. I mean, they'd have to beat them in Paris, I think.
Yeah. I mean, France are hit by their injury problems. They've just lost Damien Penaud for potentially more than the opening game. Now it's sounding like.
Yeah, I think he's overrated.
That's something that Cain would say.
No, he would say he's overrated as a tight head.
No, I saw a good headline about the French, which did say "croqued, monsieur," which I did enjoy. Can't remember where I saw it, but Olivon's out, Ficou's out, Penaud's out, Gelange, Flamand. I'm still backing them for a Grand Slam. I suspect you are as well, Jerry, but that's more reflective of their depth rather than the fact that they're obviously fielding their star-studded lineup to the full extent.
I suspect there's players we've not even heard of that could come in and do a good job at the moment. They've got such strength and depth. My challenge about France is their emotion. Can they keep their emotion intact and just play the game of rugby that they're all so brilliant at? And we'll see. They are almost the complete side when they play. They're brutal, they're big, they're athletic, they're quick, they're skillful. They've got an all-court game. They've got absolutely everything that is required. I just think their mentality sometimes let them down. You know, would they have won the championship if they hadn't have had that player sent off against Ireland in last year's championship? We'll never know. But it's not just Dupont that is the star. Who's that winger? Beard Barry. Oh my goodness, I've never seen. Well, we have in probably Chesney Colby, but he's just electric. I mean, we saw a try at the weekend in the Gallagher where Finn Russell kicked the ball on and the Bath player got ahead and scored from their own, pretty much from their own goal line. I don't see anyone beating him in a sprint, one-on-one, level pegging from a standing start. He's going to beat everyone. They've just got everything, and I think with Ramos, the inclusion of Ramos, and they had someone before I can't remember the name of, but that guaranteed them these 80%, 90% kicking success rate. So you used to infringe against the French and not worried about 3 points because they'll give you more. And France would always give you an opportunity to win the game. That's when their heads go. But with Ramos kicking 3, 6, 9, 12, you can almost guarantee 15 points. Almost guarantee 15 points from his boot. Then you get Dupont playing at 80, 90%. That's 2 tries. I don't think you need to do much more against any of these other sides. They're red hot. They're brilliant. It's just their heads that I worry about.
But with the little general on the pitch, their heads become less of an issue because it seems like they have almost a messianic. The starting 15. This is not just the French rugby public. Seem to have a messianic faith in him.
Yeah, that might be. You can't rely on just one world-class player, but that could be their problem. And I don't think it was during the World Cup. He was injured. Did the whole nation think, oh, we can't win without him? Possibly, but you've got to get so far past that.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that sort of struck me just looking at the European Cup and also the autumn internationals. They've got a guy called Burros who plays at fullback for Bordeaux, who was electric during the autumn. He played out of his skin, and if they've got injuries, they've certainly got depth, and the spine of both Bordeaux in the backs and Toulouse in the pack still intact. So I think that they've got the depth to be able to push for certainly a Grand Slam this time around.
The guy I'm most disappointed not to be seeing, I think, is probably Olivier Rouma's son, who Alexandre at number 8, who I thought was, again, he just brought, even in a side that has so many points of difference, he was bringing something else again. There's a reason why Toulouse, with their squad, were picking him to start week in, week out. He's an incredibly skillful player. So it's not just the bash days. He's got another dimension to Aldrit. I'm not saying, he's anywhere near Aldrit at his best at the moment, but he was showing signs at international level of really putting his personality on the side. He's a very intelligent player, a real purist number 8, I think. And the fact that he's injured, I don't know whether he's out for the entire tournament, but I think they'll miss him slightly.
Interesting flag, Rich. But before we sort of press on into how great it is to be Welsh ahead of this Friday night, give me your tournament winner, your player of the tournament, and one to watch.
Okay, well, I've backed the French for the last 2 tournaments and they haven't won, so I'm going to back them again. Obviously, that's logical. But no, I mean, I know they've got injuries, but of course you've got Dupont and Intermac. They're back together. I think maybe they'll be really hungry, having missed out twice. I know Ireland are going for 3 in a row. So yeah, France to win again for me. What was the next one?
Player of the tournament.
Player of the tournament. Oh, I missed that one from you there. I'll change it then. I'll go dark horse because I didn't prepare that one. Dark horse for England. I think Asher Apoko for Jaw could have a big breakthrough tournament. He is getting stronger and stronger. And I'll give one for Wales as well. I think Dan Edwards will have to be the dark horse and the player of the tournament if they're going to do well, considering they haven't picked Anscombe.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, I should say last year we all backed France for the Grand Slam, and then on Friday night, France got trounced by Ireland in Marseille, and we were immediately wrong 2 days later.
That was a weird old evening, wasn't it?
That was a really strange evening. I was so depressed by the end of it. But I'm not expecting too many upsets this Friday, and it would of course be an upset of a much bigger magnitude. But Rich, thank you so much for joining. I'm sure we'll chat soon.
No, thank you very much, guys. Enjoy the tournament.
Cheers, Rich.
Cheers, Rich. You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Great. Well, obviously that's a little snippet into what we're doing later on. Wales. I mean, I've predicted 50 points this Friday. Not for Wales, believe it or not. Jerry, 12 losses in a row. They've got probably a couple of beacons of hope in Thomas Williams and Jack Morgan. Taulupe Faletau is just about fit again. I don't really know how he's still going, to be honest.
He's about 106.
Yeah, I mean, he's older than he has caps somehow. Is one win a success?
Again, I guess if you go on world rankings, yes. Or actually, Italy might be above them. Again, how do we be positive? They shouldn't be any worse. I mean, you watched Wales, and they would get the ball, they would go through the phases, and a bit like Rich described Scotland earlier, they went through so many phases, but how many collisions did they win? How much quick ball did they produce? How many times did they get over the game line? You've really got to come up with a decent game plan to suit the players that you've got on the field. If it has to be kick and chase and defend, do it. Do not go through phase after phase after phase if you haven't got a team to bash holes in a defense. It's quite interesting that we can look at teams, and you look at statistics, and you look at weights, weight, height, and a lot of these packs, Italy and Wales included in the whole of the Six Nations here, their weights won't be massively different. They're 900 kilograms something like that, nearly a ton. There's probably 50 kg between them, but it might be difference between, say, France and possibly Italy. Yet the ball carrying ability of that pack is massively different. Look at the way the direct determination that Ireland forwards carry the ball, the athleticism of the French. Wales don't really, from viewing, seem to have that. So why not just play a different game? And if it has to be kicking to space and harrying and chasing and getting your tackles in, putting them under pressure, then come up with some special plays like Ireland do when you get into the 22. But you've got to work out the easier way to get into the 22. And I'm not sure through the hand is the right policy for Wales.
Knowing the way Warren did things in his first incarnation in Cardiff, I mean, we all know he likes, I mean, the game's changing all the time, but he likes size, Warren. You know, we saw how much he got out of George North and Cuthbert and Jamie Roberts in the same back division. That was a pretty. I mean, Jonathan Davis wasn't the smallest either. I mean, there was some big old lumps in that, and they could win some battles for you in contact. So we're not talking about the forwards at all. I mean, he had a selection of forwards who could do a bit, but that was a really strong part of the side. I could understand him on that basis, getting rid of the Rio Dyers and the Cameron Winnettes because they're featherweights in international rugby terms. I'm not saying that they don't have value. They're terrific players in many respects, but they're small and very, very light. So I get that. Where I don't understand it is not picking Max Llewellyn, who is a big, strong, powerful guy who can play on the wing or at 13. And that shows whether something's gone on behind the scenes there, I don't know. But he's played pretty damn well for Gloucester. He played well again at the weekend. I just don't quite understand that one selection. And it is a bit of a selection desert for Warren at the moment. So I don't. That was the one I didn't get. I don't know if anyone has any insight on that. But those two principles didn't seem to me to match up at all.
He was the top try scorer in the Premiership until very recently, wasn't he? He might even still be. So no, that was a bit of a head scratcher for me as well. I mean, I suppose the question is we speak about DNA. Do the Welsh go back to what worked 10 years ago, which is, and they've just brought Adam Jones in, not that he was, out in that back division that was so successful, but a back division that could out-collide anybody, essentially, with a pack that hopefully gives them front foot ball or not. And I think Welsh Rugby's DNA feels just as unchangeable as England's DNA. But that might be me sort of being quite pessimistic and defeatist about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's something that I noticed is that three of their losses last season, they lost to England by 2 points, Scotland by 1, and Italy by 3. So, and they obviously got trounced by the Irish and the French. So their results aren't quite as disastrous as perhaps it appears. And I don't know. I mean, he's obviously got real issues in terms of his pack, I think, and particularly set piece. I don't think that the Welsh scrum and the line out is where it needs to be, but they've definitely got a backline that can do damage, and I'm not. I mean, I think again those three results against those countries could be tight. England have got to go to Cardiff. Depends what shape they go to Cardiff in. So I'm not quite sure that it's it's throw the white towel in time.
I mean, if they do get a win, I suppose it's most likely against Italy, and we'll obviously get to Italy in a second. But say, and we're taking a trip down hypothetical lane here, England lose the first three, they maybe scrape past Italy, with a pretty unfavourable points difference. They could be heading to Cardiff with the wooden spoon potentially at stake, between, if results go a certain way between England and Wales. And Jerry, I suppose at that point, anything could happen with especially in that Principality Stadium, which 5 years ago was a fortress.
It could, but it won't. Crikey, if England go there fighting for a wooden spoon, something has gone massively wrong. So I don't even want to contemplate it. It's for England. Look, I think, I wish Cain could be so happy about England as he is about Wales losing by a few points. I think for Wales, they haven't found themselves. So ideally they need a few standout players coming into these important positions that you can, what player can you hang your hat on in the Welsh team that's going to be the flag bearer? Now, Morgan is that personality, that character. But what he's up against week in, week out, every single one of the games, even the Italian back row, it's massive. Yeah. It's absolutely huge. He's climbing Mount Everest every Six Nations game this season. But it won't stop him. He is just forward. He's an inspiration. I guess if Faletau can find some old form, the captain, who's the young captain who was there last year?
Jenkins.
Yeah, if they let's be brutally honest, the Welsh team to perform well, every player has to be playing 8, 9 out of 10. They have to find some magic form. Pass has to go to hand, kick has to be caught, opportunities have to be taken. Otherwise, they will be fighting with Italy for that wooden spoon.
Yeah,
I don't know what the atmosphere will be like at the Vale of Glamorgan. I mean, Gatland always said that the sort of poverty, for want of a better word, it wasn't the word he used, of the regional teams, and the fact that they were losing teams more often than they were winning teams, far more often, gave those who were selected for the test environment an absolute lift when they got to the Vale of Glamorgan and they looked at each other and began training and thought, here's a team where we can confidently expect to do something. We're more confident here, we're happier here, we're more enthused here than we are in our regional environments. That was quite a big selling point for that Welsh side. And Gatland was pretty skillful in the way he maximised that. Yeah. I don't think that it's a very, very difficult argument to sustain to say that exists now. I can't imagine that the mood at the Vale of Glamorgan is very buoyant or very positive or very optimistic. You look around and there isn't anything like an Alan Wynne-Jones there. There ain't much like an Adam Jones. There isn't anything like a Jamie Roberts. Those players aren't there. I'm not saying they don't have players who have the capacity to become substantial figures at test level. But at the moment, the anonymity is a really serious issue, I think. And he's fighting fire. And what he doesn't have, of course, is Sean Edwards, who was quite a big figure in that fantastic Welsh run. And they punched above their weight for many years, Wales, in terms of results at Six Nations, kept on winning slams and championships and things that no one expected them to win.
Well, maybe they brought Adam Jones in to do that in a slightly different way.
Are you suggesting he's going to play? I mean,
he got him out and fly half.
Well, he probably won't be less fit now than he was when he was playing.
He's behind you.
I suppose the pervading question, and I am conscious of time, but if they lose 5, that's 17 on the bounce. Is that, start from square one with a new head coach at that point? That's a question.
You just got to be sure of getting someone better than who's there. That's
Yeah.
that's always the key.
It's not a
That's
desirable job to take on board, is it?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
And they're not really breeding their own coaches, are they?
No.
That's the thing. So there's you know, I remember when people like Kevin Bowering back in the day, the late Kevin Bowering or Gareth Jenkins came in to that Welsh environment and sort of said, well, we want to Welshify the team, you know. We want to take it back to what we do well. We want to back our instincts, you know. We want to understand what's in our DNA, to use your term. But there's no one there who's kicking the door down to replace Warren at the moment. And I don't know that any other super coach, so to speak, is going to fancy the job.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think, guys, let's talk about the Irish a little bit, and then obviously I'm keen to sort of get everyone's predictions for the tournament and for this weekend. Jerry, a slightly more tenured squad. I think they've got an average of over 40 caps. They've had a couple of injuries, only 2 new names. One was enforced by Tyg Furlong's injury. Obviously, a new face at the helm. A new face. Well, he's involved in the setup, but he's transitioned over to head coach in Simon Easterby. Our feeling in the autumn was that the Irish, despite their success rate in terms of wins, were actually a little bit underwhelming. That sort of fueled my argument for them not winning the tournament this year. Do you echo that, or do you still see the same machine that existed a year ago?
I like the Irish. I like the experience. I like the way they play. Do you know what I didn't think, and I forgot that Farrell's not going to be there. I think he's another flag bearer, flag carrier. He can really motivate a side, and you replace that. So that's a big difference. The different voice. I know it's been there, but the voice of Easterby hasn't been leading.
Yeah.
So I think that's one big point for this Six Nations. And my gut sort of tells me they're just on the edge of possibly falling below the standards and the performances that they had leading up to the World Cup and making them the #1 side in the world, and where they've come to afterwards. So they've got quality still. That you can look at quality all over, and experience, and I guess it's all right having Doris as that number 8 and the captain, and Gibson Park at 9, but the person that the ball receives one of the high times a lot of the time is 10. Now, who are they going to choose? The new guy or Crowley? And I think that is a really big selection, as big as England's selection at 10, because the experience is inside him and outside those that whoever they choose at 10, and it's getting that right. And I think that could make all the difference to them. But I guess again, there are a few variables. That pack, I don't think it really plays badly, but it can be much better. It can be much more forceful. It can be much more powerful. And if they find that, then yes, they will. They're going to compete with France to win the championship without doubt. They're not. I mean, before I saw them running, before the World Cup, just after the World Cup, I saw them sort of running away with games just because of their poise, their structure, their plan, their organisation, their execution. But now I look at the Irish side and think, and it's not because Sexton's gone, it's because of their performances. They just don't seem as sharp, but they will be very, very competitive.
How do the French beat them at home? Which is presumably the championship decider, the way we're sort of billing it.
I just look at the French and say, if you play your game as well as you can, I don't think Ireland. I don't think Ireland will beat you. Of course they can, and Ireland. For me in that game, it's about their defence and their jackal and their turnover. If they can get that defence hard against France and jackal and turn them over, frustrate them, get them annoyed, the decisions aren't quite. Then you can start getting in the French heads, and you've beaten them. As soon as you got in their heads, you have beaten the French. So it's whether those French experienced players who are dominating Europe can do that at this level of the Six Nations and not be frustrated, believe in how good they are, that they will come and keep coming and just score more tries, kick more penalties, and win the game.
On a really good day, Tyburn, Josh van der Fleer, Andrew Porter, actually, there's a ridiculous mobility for a loose head prop. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's on the floor, and those blokes are absolutely fantastic at frustrating you. I think the Irish are down a notch. They are, Furlong. I think Furlong's pretty much past his best anyway, but they'll miss him. Sheehan's had his injury problems. We've got the whole Henshaw Ringrose issue at Leinster, caused by Geordie Barrett, another hugely overrated player, in my opinion, as you would expect me to say. I know. Look, the bloke's a fabulous player, but he has caused that disruption at Leinster. So the Henshaw Ringrose axis is not running as smoothly by definition because they're either not both playing together or one of them's on the wing.
What about the Bundy-Aki axis?
Aki,
he's been the starting man, hasn't he, with Henshaw? So,
and he was best in the autumn as well.
Yeah.
Very good player. But was he as good is he going to be? How much more does he have left in the tank, do you think?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the question of have they reached that point of, we will very much find out. I still think Aki, gosh, he's so difficult to stop. He's still got the energy, he's still got the purpose, and he's route one, direct one road, and it's never a dead end. That road just continues for him. So I really don't think they'd pick him if they didn't feel and the statistics didn't show that he's up for 70, 80 minutes of a game doing the destruction that he normally does produce.
And also, you made the point in your column, Jerry, that an Irish player of 32 hasn't got as many miles on the clock probably as as an English or French player of 32.
Absolutely.
He's older than 32, isn't he? I think he's closer to
34, I think he is,
35, yeah.
I'm surprised on that basis that Johnny Sexton retired as soon as he did.
Part-timer.
What was he? He's only 38, wasn't he?
In Irish, that's 25.
But, Ollie, you asked how do the French beat the Irish in Dublin, and one of the ways is not to do what Willemse did in the opening 20 minutes in Marseille. Look, I think that the French have got a probably the strongest pack in the tournament, and I think that they can put that Irish back row under the sort of pressure with their ability to keep the ball alive. I mean, that Toulouse game that we've seen, a lot depends on how it translates into the French side. But if their forwards manage to keep that sort of fluidity in their game, even a side like Ireland, who are very, very structured, are going to struggle not to be unpicked.
I think the big thing is, having listened to everybody and spoken, that I think pretty much every forward in the Irish team has this innate ability to jackal and slow ball down or win a turnover. And if the French are loose in their ball carrying, that's where they're come unstuck. I can't see them coming unstuck anywhere else other than that, the collision and the first 2 seconds of a breakdown. And that's where you see everyone from 1 to 8 and 16 to 20. They're always looking to come over that, and any gap, any lack of support, that Irish pack are the best, I think, in the world at doing that. And that's the only way I genuinely see Ireland beating France.
I think if Ireland win that game, Tyburn's man of the match.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting about it is that they're two sides now, because they've been tilting at each other at the top for 3-4 seasons now, maybe a bit more. They know each other very, very well indeed. And what intrigued me is that I'm sure that the French template will be probably the way that Toulouse managed to get on top of Leinster in that European Cup final, which was a fantastic game last summer. And I think that the French showed there. I mean, they've got jacklers of their own. Cross is a very, very underrated player, I think. They've got a double hooker contingent of Malvaca and
Marchand.
and yeah, who are Marchand, who are exceptional. I think that they've got the ability and certainly the heft. They got more weight and power in their pack in terms of carrying than the Irish do.
It's round 4 that game, isn't it? Which is quite nice. I mean, as Paul Willems was sent off, there was a feeling that the Six Nations first place battle was over last year. So at least we'll have that to look forward to in 5 weeks, regardless.
And surprise, he hasn't reappeared for France since.
Oh, bless him! I hope it's not the last thing he does in a French shirt. That would be a sorry way to end. Let's mention the Italians briefly as well. We've got Lewis Liner coming on in 3 or 4 weeks, which I'm very excited about. Obviously, sorry not to see him with his knee injury. Jerry, as obviously a former midfielder, my feeling now that Tuipulotu is down injured is that Italy have up there with the best midfield in the championship in that Brex and Menoncello combination. Menoncello, obviously player of the championship last year, and they continue to sort of go from strength to strength at club and with country.
Yeah, I think you carry on where you left off, and you're going to have the same sort of impact. I think every time Cain and I do the column, it comes to Italy, and I pretty much just want to put the phone down or switch it off. But you forget they had 2 wins and a draw last season, and by their measures, they did very well.
Should have beaten us as well with that kit.
You got Matt Gallagher coming in as well at fullback from Bath, who I saw a lot of down here. That adds some experience, some decent talent. He's a good footballer. He's got good vision. He can communicate that and help Monticello and Brex. And I don't know who they'll go for at 10, whether it's Garbisi or is Allen still around?
Yeah,
I think he's in the squad.
Yeah. And I think for them, for Italy, it was what their pack can compete with the best in the Six Nations, and we've seen that. They compete with France and nearly beat them. It's whether they can hang on. So I think Italy's first 3 games are crucial to keep consistency and have no injuries, and I think they could be competitive with that. I would like to see them be competitive, but just statistics say that they're unlikely to. I hope they are. I hope they do, and I hope they kick on from last season, because it would certainly cause a massive disruption in the Six Nations and keep it really, really exciting.
I reckon if you lined up 100 England supporters and 100 Italian supporters and asked them to predict their starting lineup, more Italian supporters or the Italian supporters will get a higher average of names, which is something I probably never thought I'd say about Italy. But that retention piece is actually something that's essential. You know what I think their 10 is going to be Garbisi. I would be surprised if it wasn't. You know what their midfield's going to be. You know what at least 2 of their 3 back rowers are going to be. That's something that wasn't true before, and it means that that these players are putting their hands up for selection. You mentioned the injuries, Jerry. I think Ange Capuozzo missing much of the championship last year was a blow, but he now is fighting fit and looks to be back at the peak of his powers with Toulouse as well. I think it's exciting, and that they've got Wales at home. So I see them getting 1 win at least, if not 2.
And sometimes the lack of choice can be positive. I mean, you can be swamped by choices and end up being neither one thing nor the other in selection. I mean, if you have a relatively limited supply of international class players, then selection becomes slightly less of an issue.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, I think the time has come to play our cards predictions wise, we're unanimous for this weekend. I won't go. I've obviously seen and done all predictions throughout the tournament. We won't go into that today, but we've all got France to beat Wales, Scotland to beat Italy, and Ireland to beat England. So 3 home wins.
So having not gone into it, you've told everyone what we predicted.
No. As in not go into it for the rest of the championship.
Oh, I see.
Just this weekend. Jerry, you've got a pretty sizable. Brendan and Absentia backed France to put 50 on Wales. Jerry, you've gone slightly lower in 44 points to 10, but still obviously fairly comfortable. And then England, Ireland, you've gone quite tight, just the 7 points.
Me?
Yeah.
I just think England. There's no logic to my thinking of why England should do well in Ireland.
What
just
made
think
you the centre you were, Jerry?
I think Borthwick may find something in this side, and I think this side might deliver for him. And this is based more on hope and more along the lines of the defeats are being small, and then they're going to get smaller, and they're going to get to the point where they win. And Ireland aren't quite as good as they were, and that's why I think there'll be a lot more pressure on Ireland. And when England went there and Ireland were going for the championship or the Grand Slam, if it wasn't for Hewett getting sent off, Ireland were really making mistakes, and that first half was full of mistakes from an experienced team. And I think if England can keep in that game, they're going to cause some problems.
England are always pretty competitive, aren't they? I mean, I can't remember in Northern Hemisphere, but it was Six Nations rugby. I can't remember them being blown away very often.
Yeah, they got hammered by France at Twickenham a couple of seasons ago.
That big one, yeah. And then there was the 2013 game down in Cardiff, which they didn't quite see which way the wind blew that night. But it was, but they're generally pretty competitive. They're hard to beat.
Yeah,
I mean the fact that they sometimes beat themselves at the back end of games, we've discussed already. But I can see that England will ask questions of Ireland and make life very, very difficult for them. And if then the question is whether Ireland,
as long as they don't pick that back row that was
well. I mean, I don't want to take responsibility for that back row. I'm don't shoot the messenger.
I'm not.
Look, I think predictions results are obviously unanimous, and well, hopefully, unless we're made to look red-faced, a little bit easier to predict this weekend. But there will be discrepancies as we go down the championships. I can already see several, which I look forward to debating and seeing who ends up looking a bit silly. And it's either going to be all of us or none of us this weekend. So at least we're all together. Guys, let's get everyone's tournament winner. I'll do that very quickly. Does anyone not see the French getting it done? Everyone's going with France.
Yeah.
I think we should say, to not piss off the Irish supporters, that, as Jerry said, Ireland will compete, and it all obviously hinges on that game in Dublin in round 4. Player of the tournament, I've been incredibly lazy, and I'm going with Antoine Dupont, which feels like the cop-out of all cop-outs. But a year out, I just expect him to come back with a bang. And if I'm picking France to win, it's going to have to be a French player, and he's obviously front and center of everything they do. I'm going to throw it to the floor, and whoever's ready with theirs can come forth.
Yeah, I'll put up another Frenchman. I'd put up Malvaca. I think his carrying ability is. I mean, he's a big guy. He's a little bit bigger than Marchand, but he's a great athlete. He's a very, very fit guy. And his line out throwing has improved. It used to be a little bit hit and miss. Now it's on the money. And his jackling ability is among the best in the tournament. And I'd say he's probably as effective as Tag Byrne in that regard. So I definitely flag Malvaca as an important player, and France. He's an inspirational player for France, no question.
Jerry, you look
I
ready.
will say Finn Russell. I think I've seen so much of him at at Bath last season, this season, and he's just getting better and better. And whilst I'm not sure if he's going to get all the ball that he would normally get here at the recreation ground or playing behind a Bath pack, I just think he's just in a rich vein of form, and I just see that continuing.
Should we round us off?
Well, I was going to say, Finn, actually. So for the just for variety's sake, and this is a bit of a purist thing, and we've mentioned him already, but at some point, France will find themselves in a fight. May find themselves in more than one, and if it is close and it is fine margins, I think Francois Cross is, as Nick said, massively underrated.
Yeah,
and he won't win any awards for player of the tournament because people like him never get picked. But I think he's pretty indispensable to the French at the moment. So I would say him just for, as I say, for variety's sake. I think he's a heck of a player.
Let's round up with one to watch. I've gone with two to watch, which is slightly cheating, but my initial one was Gaël Dréan, Toulon winger, who, given Penaud's injury, I'm seeing a bit of a window for. He's obviously up there in terms of the leaderboards for the top 14, and I hope he gets a chance against the Welsh. And if he does, I reckon he'll bag 2 or 3. The other is Arthur Vincent, who, before he burst onto the scene a year ago, he was a Domino's delivery driver. I think while he burst onto the scene, he was still doing that. And anyone who's watched him with Exeter knows how quick he is. He certainly is quick, if not quicker than Benno. So they would be my two. Jerry, I'm going to come to you first this time.
I'm going to nick your first one. I read up about him. I thought I'd better do some reading about these up and comers, and everything that you read and you mentioned it, Ollie. The statistics say that this is a kid to watch. So yeah, Gaël Dréan is my one to watch, and he should be in now that Penaud's injured.
Let's hope so. Chewy.
I love a French centre. I do love a French centre, going right the way back to Cordonier and Salah and all those guys. I'm going to say I could go either Emilien Gaëtan. I think that's the right pronunciation. And I am going to go for this guy, Nicolas Deporter, who I think is a hot prospect.
Presumably, only one of them starts as well. Given
I don't know. I don't know what else they do. What they do in midfield. I don't know if Gaëtan plays 13, and Deporter will therefore play 12. I mean, is Dante around? Fiku, we know, is not.
Dante's injured.
So I don't. They may well play together. I don't know, but I think Deporter and anyone I ever speak to in France or as close to French rugby thinks that he's the real deal. So I'll go with him.
Okay, your second one spiked me, Ross Vincent, but I come up with the guy.
That's because he called him Arthur, Nick.
Yeah, called him. That's right. But
good point. Why did I do that?
Thank God he didn't mean Elliot Daly.
I mean, one to watch, and that you can't afford to take your eyes off. Because he's sort of like a cartoon character almost. Something out of one of the old Boys' Own stuff is Ange Capuozzo. I mean, he's just a game changer. He's extraordinary, and every time he gets the ball, it seems that he usually, incredibly, 70-80% of the time, he'll make something happen, which is extraordinary, given his, the fact that he's a will o' the wisp.
Just your sort of player, Nick, a 2-stone trigger wing. Yeah, I mean, it was obvious you were going to pick him right.
We're going to play Moosehead.
Amazing. Well, we're 3 days out. When this episode drops, we'll be 2 days out. Team selection should drop fairly soon. I'm particularly intrigued by that England selection. I hope we're wrong, and I hope the leaks are wrong. But I suppose we'll see. Jerry, as always, so good to have you. Which games are you going to HQ for, if any?
The Scotland and France game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Finn live is always good. Dupont and the rest of the French team live is always a great experience. Good to see those athletes and the skill sets and listen to the roar of Twickenham again. Really looking forward to it.
Big money speaking gigs?
Couldn't possibly say.
Well, hopefully you see an England win. Unlikely to, but let's hope you see one. And yeah, I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Rugby Paper podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on whichever podcast platform you use and recommend the show to your friends. The Rugby Paper is available to buy every Sunday, and to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe through our print, digital and online options at therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions. That's therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions to get all our content for as little as 14p per day.